We do go out and do trader inspections. The history of FCCC comes from the Prices and Incomes Board. From the 70s, we've employed a system of going out and doing inspections, and it is quite clear and apparent that in the last 4 years or so, the global dynamics have changed. The manner in which market reacts to price shocks has also changed. Historically, we saw that whenever there was changes in prices, the impact to consumers would be delayed. There would be some sort of a lag. What we are seeing now is the trend is businesses are effecting or making changes to the prices quicker. And that could be due to a whole host of uncertainties. Globally speaking, you've got wars and then you've got rumors of wars coming up. And that has an impact on the commodity market. Now, just looking at pricing alone, we looked at a few commodities, and we've been out and about, and we've had people come up and raise concerns and queries, and there's things that we've observed on our own as well. So far in the past year, we've done 16,568 inspections, of which we've picked out about 410 different breaches. Now, as I've previously also explained, identifying a breach and then taking that breach and successfully prosecuting in court are two very different things. Because here you will notice something that's not correct, and you will have to investigate it. Now, FCCC has to follow the process of natural justice. So if we find that, say, a particular trader has increased prices for say rice, most recent one that we got from fijivillage was there was a particular person that had complained that the price of rice outside Vitilevu was somewhere $32. Now we checked our master price list, because rice is a price controlled product. There is nowhere that the prices have been $32. So in this instance, this particular person may have been overcharged. And we do note that they are unscrupulous traders. These unscrupulous traders are always looking at how we can benefit out of the market. Over the past several years, we have had a good system of compliance. Now, even if you look at the numbers now, out of 16,568, we've got only 410 or so breaches. When we take these breaches, we'll have to evaluate them and look at what are the offences and whether we have got enough evidentiary requirements to successfully prosecute this matter. And we have. I mean, if I can give some examples, say this is examples of overcharging. There was a retailer in Suva that sold price control items. This was Fiji gas. They had 18 cylinders at their premises. Instead of selling it at $31.58, they were selling it at $35.89. Our team promptly picked this up. In 12 kg cylinders, they had 18 cylinders that they were overcharging on for about $4.30. They were overcharging on 4.5 kg cylinders by $1.62. And so we took this matter to court, successfully prosecuted it. The courts implemented a fine of 2,000. Another retailer in Navua, Bushell's tea, 100 grams, they were selling it at $2.50 instead of $1.73. They were selling baby milk, lactogen. 2 packets was in stock. Instead of $9.35, they were selling it for $9.50. They were fined 2,500. And similarly, I've got a few other instances where we've got traders that were fined. Say, for example, there was a dairy shop in Nosori that was selling red cow reva powders, 450 grams. Instead of selling it at its original price, they were charging 4 cents extra. Now, one could look at all these instances. I've got products, retailer overcharging on FMF sun-grown rice, on red cow powdered milk, on corn mutton. I've got all these products like kerosene and fuel products, where we find that there are traders in some areas that resort to unethical practices. When we do announce price changes, we found that when prices increase, the increase is immediately applied. But when there's a reduction, traders will take their time. They will come back to us and say, oh, I did not know that the price had reduced. Whereas these are all communicated publicly. So we are using a risk-based approach, honing down on these unscrupulous traders. We have filed charges with regards to VAT against one. We are currently in active investigation against a major supermarket that had increased the price of chicken from $17 to $25. Now, one would ask, the increase was in August. What are you doing about it all the way in November? That's where the law comes in. The FCCC has to operate within the bounds of the law. The rights of an accused person in the constitution applies. We have to treat people innocent until proven otherwise, and as such we have to requisite all information, and these all have to be done legally. We have to analyze it. We have to look at the explanations that companies give. So the explanations that we are currently dealing with right now is the trader said, oh, my staff made an error, and they're pleading this defense of mistake, saying we made an error, it was not intentional, and they've given this warning letter to this particular staff. So they've got all things on record that it was an error. Now we are still conflicted with it, because we feel that as a matter of national importance, this matter should be trialed in court, and let the judiciary give an opinion on whether such was really an error, or whether there was some sinister motives behind this. Now chances are we might lose this matter, and we might, at the expense of public funds, expand a case which we know we might not be successful at. Having said that, we still want to test the law, because we've always been saying that our law requires some revision, and I would like to thank the Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Manoa. He's been very instrumental in getting the reviews done. We are currently in the process of drafting some subsidiary regulation and legislation that will help us do a lot of joint inspections around food regulation, especially around expiry dates. So there's quite a lot of work that the team is doing. But in terms of how do we, so if the unscrupulous traders are doing this, how do you out of 16,000 identify these 410 breaches? Now people are quite right. I've read the social media post, I've read comments that people make, is that look, when FCCC leaves, the retailers jack the price up again. You hike it up, because they know that these are your 20-30 people that come out, do inspections, they'll go back. That is why we're taking a multifaceted approach. So yes, we know that some of these traders are unethical. How do you identify them? But even though that we know they are unethical, we can't say, hey, you'll always now be profiled as an unethical trader. The law requires me to be unbiased and treat them as innocent until proven otherwise. They could do an offense, and they still need to be treated the same as any other trader would be. But we're doing joint surveillance exercise. We've done it with the city councils, the local government. We've done joint inspections in Lautoka, Singatoka. We've even gone inside bulks, looked at the hygiene practices. So not only are we looking at affordability, we're looking at the complete consumer shopping experience. We are working with developing some innovative ways, like having community consumer champions. So it's a program that we are now trying to pilot. Last year we had an MOU with the Minister of iTaukei Affairs to see how we could use the existing infrastructure that government has, people that we have already in the communities. How can we use them to get people to register complaints? The vulnerable Fijians in these rural communities, how do we get them to lodge complaints? It's easier for somebody living in Flagstaff to come down to Suva, or somebody living in Drasa to go to Lautoka city. But what happens to somebody who's based in Singatoka? As we speak, we are in the final stages of trying to launch an office in Singatoka. We are also have got some consumer complaint kiosks, which are your basic ATM type setups, where people can go in, press buttons, and you'll be able to register complaints, and this will be put out in the market. So especially where we don't have presence, places like Ba, Tavua, Rekereki, we want people to be able to reach out to us and give us instances where they feel that violations have been made, where they suspect. So usually when a consumer identifies issues, there's suspicion. For FCCC to act, we have to have proof. So the road between suspicion to proof is what is the investigation process. And that is why we want to build consumer community champions, so people can, as soon as you have issues, you go to your consumer community champion, or you contact them, you file a matter there. We will then use that as a basis of identifying riskier areas and undertaking very rigorous 100% substantive inspections, revealing not only the matter that's raised, but in entirety. So if somebody has raised an issue of pricing, we'll also check hygiene, we'll also check their receipting, their invoicing, their storage, etc., so that we're looking at the complete consumer experience when they're shopping. We're also working with stakeholders and stakeholders like media, like FijiVillage, to try and get the information out to people, explain when things change or when prices change. Say one example is, I did a press conference in September, early September. Fiji Times ran an article on the 9th of September where it said anticipate fuel and rice prices to increase. And that is based on our assessment of what's happening globally. Unfortunately, before I get to the pricing, I'll quickly discuss some of the other innovative approaches that we've had, that we are working on. Of removing the paper-based shelf labels to digital shelf labels, so that when a price is changed by a supermarket through their system on their shelf, if that is linked with the FCCC e-pricing system, anytime there is a overcharge, we'll get alerted to it. Anytime there's a price change, we'll get alerted to it. So we'll know exactly who is increasing it. But of course, getting a system change doesn't happen overnight. It's a medium-term project. We are looking at the next 2 years of completing this project. We're doing e-inspections. We're doing a price checker system. So if you go into a supermarket and currently in the short term you can't see the ticket or you think the price is too high, you can pick the product, go in a place in a supermarket and scan it at the aisle. You'll be able to know what the system-based price is. We also are looking at things like temperature monitoring. We found through our inspection that some supermarkets and shops, what they'll do is to save on electricity costs, they'll turn off the freezers at night. Now, consumers can see, sometimes when you go to buy ice cream, you'll see the ice cream has shrunk a few centimeters. That's because it's melted and then it has been refrozen. And there's health concerns around this because the sugar in the ice cream crystallizes. In fact, some research shows that it could be fatal if given to infants, toddlers, younger children. So crystallized sugar, this has a lot of health concerns as well. So we also not only working at checking the price, but also should we have a temperature monitoring system that can be monitored by the FCCC so that people don't turn off these freezers, and should it be done market wide? Now all these technologies will of course have a cost. Other thing that we've noticed is, like Australia has now confirmed the 8th wave of COVID. FCCC has been in the middle of COVID enforcement from when it started in March of 2020. And one of the things that we've observed is supermarkets could be a hotspot for super spreaders. Now, we've been encouraging companies to invest in air purifying technology that can kill pathogens on contact. And some supermarkets have done it. Now we expect to create a standard for supermarkets that says this is the minimum hygiene standard and this is the minimum standards in terms of reporting that you have to do. Now, that being said, I talked about informing the public of changes in prices. Now, unfortunately, what the Fijian public is observing is a series of unfortunate events, right? While we've had an increase in VAT locally from the 1st of August to address the issue of physical space and create this funding opportunity for government to invest in social services and in infrastructure, we've also have seen changes in the global market. We've seen the Russia-Ukraine war is continuing. It's completed 1 year, no sight of end. Right? Now Russia and Ukraine, they amount for 30% of global wheat exports, right? So what have we seen post the Russian war? We've seen wheat prices slowly and steadily increasing. Globally, some prices have started to come down slowly. It's starting to come down slowly. You look at fuel. You look at the Hamas and Israel war. That has an impact on geopolitics. Has an impact on fuel oil pricing. Now, rice prices. India has announced an export ban. Now, simply, if you went to the supermarket and if you are a consumer, you went to the supermarket and you saw the price of rice has increased. And if you have access to a mobile device that has got data on it, simply go online on your Safari, on your Chrome, or whichever extension, and say, why are rice prices increasing? You can just do a Google search, right? You will see many articles. I'll read one. I'll do that right now, right? I'll go online and I'll say, why are rice prices increasing? And you'll see actual data from entities like UNFAO, right? I've got the CNBC article, right? It says global rice prices surges to a 12-year high and could rise even more. Rice prices surged to their highest point in 12 years according to the United Nations Food Agency. The Food and Agriculture Organization reports all rice prices index rose by 2.8% in July to 129.7 points, the highest value since September 2011. Now September 2011, that's when the terrorist attacks happened in the US. Rice prices surged to the highest in almost 12 years on the back of India's export ban and adverse weather condition that could impact food production, said United Nations Food Agency. Now, when you see this commodity based pricing, because even if you're buying FMF rice or you're buying any other rice, you got to know that in Fiji we import our rice from Vietnam and Thailand. Then we mill it here, we process it, and we package it as FMF rice and we sell it. But we are still susceptible to the changes in the global market. So if India has placed an export ban which accounts for 30% of global exports, what happens to the rice prices in Fiji? We don't buy our rice from India. But guess what? If you again go on Google, you can see some videos on YouTube or on social media where people in the US were pulling rice packets off plastics off the shelf, like you had the toilet paper incident in Australia when COVID hit. Everybody was rushing and panic buying, because US has a huge Asian diaspora. So guess what companies in US do? They go to countries like Vietnam and Thailand and they say, we'll buy rice off you. Now our companies, private companies in Fiji have got contracts with the exporters in Vietnam and Thailand. They say, look, we'll still supply you, we'll give you the product, right? We won't screw you over, we'll give you the product. But you've got to pay more. Because the US is if you don't pay more, we'll sell it to the United States, or we'll sell it to somebody else who's ready to pay more. So the global price hits. Now, I was doing a quick assessment and I said, how is it that prices have increased, and you'll see that more than a 6% change in prices locally. Now, if you just look at this is Index Mandi, like this is if you go online, this is a free website that does commodity based pricing. Now you'll see in March, right? Now you can't see it on camera, but in March you saw that global prices started increasing. Now at that time, rice prices where people were paying was about $490 per metric ton. Guess what we are paying today in November? $618 per metric ton. So that change in commodity based pricing will be felt in Fiji. So if you're going to buy rice and it used to cost you $13 and now it's costing you about $15-16, and it also depends on which rice you're buying. Like for example, jasmine rice is not price controlled, right? So if you're buying jasmine rice, the increase in that proportion may be more, but it's not a price control item. FCCC can't dictate or doesn't dictate when prices are not subject to price control. We don't dictate what the prices ought to be. The market is able to fix those prices. We've got alternative, cheap alternatives. So we've got long grain rice that's under price control. Now, obviously, consumers that go and purchase long grain rice, and if you had purchased it month after month, if you're buying, family of 4 or 5, you're buying 10 kg rice. Over the last several months, you'll see prices increasing. Now, you've also had VAT increase locally, right? Then corporate tax has increased as well. So what traders have done is they've passed some increased cost, right? Now those increased costs would have been justified had the international prices not moved. Now let's turn our attention to fuel, right? Because that's the other one that we discuss quite a lot on a monthly basis. Now in June, if you look at the June statistics globally, we set somewhere around $75 per barrel, and the prices that you have been seeing in the last 2 months are based on $92 and $95. Prices have started coming down, yes, but we have strategic fuel stock here, meaning if tomorrow the medium range tankers don't come to Fiji, we are good for 2.5 months. That is what the fuel price template allows for. It allows for safety stock, because we don't want a case where there's a war in the Middle East and all of a sudden there's no fuel tankers coming to Fiji. We can't within a month say, hey, there's no fuel. We can't go to work, we can't do anything, we can't run our industries. The fuel industry is so strategically important that we allow at least 2.5 months of stock for the companies to keep, and our people pay for that through the pricing structure. And that is why we use a 2-month lag period. And Now we've seen that globally, as supply stocks have been released by countries like the US, prices has started coming down globally. It's now, the November one was at $86 that we saw. So what will that mean? It means that the prices in December will be forecasted to reduce for fuel. Now, when we increase the price in November, we weren't trying to engage in any economic espionage, or we're not trying to just increase the price because we want people to pay more. We increase it because globally the prices were increasing. If we don't increase it and we ask the company to absorb the loss, after some time these companies will not want to operate in Fiji. ExxonMobil, Total will say, much like how Shell left, how BP Southwest left. They'll say, look, this is a small market, it doesn't make sense for us to operate. And we'll start losing the confidence of investors. So that is why when costs go up and legitimate costs go up, we'll pass those legitimate costs. If you talk to the fuel companies today, they'll tell you FCCC is not doing a good job because we have not reviewed their operating cost from 2012. Meaning, the fuel companies, we as Fijian consumers today, when you go to the shop, to the service station, you're paying the operating cost for mobile of 2012. You're not paying today's operating cost. If we pass the operating cost today, the fuel price would be much more. Same thing goes for flour. If you talk to Sanjay Punja or Rajesh Punja at Punjas or FMF, they'll tell you the last flour template operating cost review was done in 2009. The next review we currently doing it because global prices are falling. This is the time to do it. If global prices are slowly coming down, we need to do the review now, so that the increase or the impact to the consumer is not a global increase, then a domestic increase. We have to balance those things out. And or if you talk to the bus companies, they'll tell you 8 months they've been with the FCCC asking for bus increase. Or if you talk to the taxi association, talk to Ashwin Lal, he'll tell you he's been at it for the last 2 years. We will not pass any increase unless it's justified. We owe the duty of care to the Fijian people. And yes, I do understand that people say, oh, prices are increasing. What's the FCCC doing? We are scrutinizing the prices to make sure you don't pay more than reasonably what you ought to pay. Now, our job, and most of the times people say, oh, you should keep the prices low. But that is not the role of the FCCC. Our role is to balance the market so the market operates properly. We are a competition agency, meaning we want market forces to stabilize prices. Our interventions for price regulation should be a temporary measure. When we get in, we want the market to work well, and we do hold on of reviews. We do get in and question. I'll give you an example. 2019 EFL applied for, because that's a huge issue that people are discussing around cover bowls now. They've asked for 32% increase in 2023. Now in 2019 they asked for 17.5% increase or a 12.5% increase. Guess what we approved? 2.74%. We said no. We don't think the people of Fiji should pay. And right now, I think there's a lot of negativities that's been circulated around. Oh, EFL is, tariffs have increased. No, it hasn't increased. They've just put in a submission. That is part of the process. They ask us. They come to us because they are a regulated industry. They ask us, we want to increase prices. We'll go out and consult people and say, what do you think? And so the time to participate in consultations is when we are doing those reviews. After we've done the review, you come and say, hey, you don't, you didn't take this into account, or you should have done this. My first question would be, did you file a submission? Because I want your views to be heard, but I can't hear it and make changes after the review has been completed, because that's unfair on the entity that's applying for submissions as well. So there is a window in which we open it, we advertise, we get people to participate, and there's quite a lot of people that come back and they say no, which is generally what we expect people will say. But just because we expect them to say no doesn't mean we stop asking them. So that is why people will say, hey, why do you put tents at the Vodafone Triangle? That's one of the avenues. We also put tents in the Corvo market. We've also gone out to communities, talk to farmers, talk to fishermen. We get views from different people. Now we're starting the second phase, which is we're getting EFL to come in and present. They make the presentation, and we get the industry. Yesterday we had a session at the Tanoa Hotel where we had people from academia. We had lecturers from the university come in and talk engineering. Now we don't expect somebody to come in with the whole EFL submission, which is about this thick, sit with us at the Vodafone Triangle and go through the hydrology report or go through the renewable energy mix. That requires a different focus session. We are opening all sorts of avenues for people to give their views, so nobody is left behind. So if somebody hasn't read the tariff submission but still agrees, I don't want to pay more, without any reason, they can come and tell us, I don't want to pay more. We will have those views reflected. Somebody that has gone through the view, yesterday we received the submission from Fiji Labour Party. They said we dispute it all, and they've given a 13-14 page submission. We've got submissions from people like the former owner of Tembara buses, Arvind Maharaj, very detailed, well written submission. So we've got people putting in very detailed and well written submission. We balance this out with our day-to-day lay consumers. Now the duty of care still is on FCCC. We might go with three options. One, there should be a price increase, yes, or there should be no change, or there should be a price reduction. That will be guided by what the numbers tell us. So we'll run the numbers, we'll ask the questions, we'll scrutinize, and once we undergo the degree of scrutiny, we end up approving maybe 2.74% from the 17 that was applied. If that is an example that people can see about how the regulatory process works, lodging a submission doesn't mean you'll get an increase. And we've never been anti people. We work for the betterment of all Fijians. And when I say all Fijians, businesses and consumers. The Act says we have to balance equitable returns to businesses and fairness for consumers. We have to balance it out. Unlike the Consumer Council, which is a consumer advocacy body, they will only take on and advocate consumer related issues. Right? Whatever the consumer is saying, they will say the same thing. So if the consumer is saying price is going high, they can go do their own research, they'll say the same thing. On behalf of consumers, the Consumer Council files a report for every review that we do, and it's quite robust. So having said that, the prices will change, and I've said this previously, it's not a function of government. I just sat in a taxi over the weekend and I said, so sir, how's things? Government has come in, people were wanting change, and now things are going up. I said, well, let me stop you there. It's got nothing to do with government. Prices are a function of market. If globally prices of fuel has gone up, locally the prices will go up. We don't exist in a silo. We don't exist in a vacuum. We don't take out our own crude oil. So if people in the Middle East that take out crude oil have decided, and OPEC has said we'll cut production in efforts to raise prices, we have to comply. We are price takers. So these are some of the things that we do. Apart from that, there's ongoing regulatory reviews. The recent one that we are doing that you would have seen is on milk powder and butter. Now it's got nothing to do with government. It's got nothing to do with people calling for price changes and affordability and cost of living. Fiji Dairy had, which is owned by CJ Patel, was given a 10-year concession. Now that 10-year concession ended in August last year. So we've put them under efficiency review. So what we are saying is, yes, you were exempt all these years, but in 10 years you should have become efficient. We get it. When you took over the Rewa dairy factory, the factory was not efficient. You needed to put in infrastructure, you needed to make investments. Yes, in 10 years you should have done that. Now it's time for you to be efficient. So and they're not happy with us because we've penalized them in places. We've reduced the prices because we've saw that efficiency gains need to be passed to consumers. And that was an ongoing review that we are doing since August of last year. We just concluded. Now this regulatory review exercise, the reason why it takes so long is we have to be really thorough. Like imagine I come to you and you're earning, like businesses earn from sales, individuals earn from your pay, and I come and I start say, Vijay, give me your pay, I'll scrutinize it whether you should earn this dollar or not. Obviously nobody's gonna like it. Businesses don't like regulators. We are not in cahoots with them. Why? Because nobody wants to be told how to run their business. I often get told, have you ever run a business? You don't know how to run a business. Why are you telling us to run a business? No, I don't know how to run a business. I've never run a business, yes. But I'm an accountant by profession. I know the numbers. we've got a team of analysts that scrutinize the price, everything from movements in global prices to local clearance charges to changes in policy. Say one example, right? When I say changes in policy, most recently LTAE, the new board has come and said, look, we believe that safety should be prioritized. As such, for students, now the bus will no longer carry 96 passengers, it will only carry 60. So in those 4 seats where, so in that long seat where 4 children could sit previously, now the rule is only 3 should sit, because that's the number of adults that can sit. If it's a 60-seater passenger, only 60 people in the bus. That will have an impact on the pricing. That will affect bus fares. Why? Because now all of a sudden the revenue that they were getting from 80 passengers, they're now only getting it from 60 passengers. So that will have to be reflected somewhere. So any changes in policy, international movements, freight changes, policy changes, local tax changes, changes in operating conditions locally. We also look at economic rating that the Reserve Bank releases, inflation forecast. We look at income of people also. And that is, these are the places where we would then go to government and say, do you want to subsidize this? Say one example is, we are currently waiting for Water Authority to give us some information, but we had commenced the review for water rates. Now, water rates, it's 15 cents for 1,000 liters of water. Everybody in Fiji knows that's cheap, right? Because you go to the supermarket, you buy 1 liter, you'll pay, or 1.5 liter, you'll pay $1.20, $1.30, cheapest, right? Here for 1,000 liters, you're paying 15 cents. Now, we do understand that when things globally, when prices of products are increasing, you have to look at the entire consumer basket. So we've already had some preliminary discussions with government where there is an option for government to step in and subsidize any increase that may come out of the increased water rates, because people may not be able to pay, and that is as basic as it gets. You know, you probably can farm off the land and live, but where will you get clean, safe drinking water? So that is very critical. And when you're looking at a basket, you're saying, okay, if you have got this finite pool of funds, where can government subsidize? Where can government assist? Now, government can't come in and reduce prices of everything. Government has no influence on market-based pricing. They can pass policies like changes in tax rate for canned fish. Now, when you saw that canned fish changed, or you saw that the prices for the duty reduced from 32%, say, just on the 9th, we did a review for Ocean King mackerel in tomato sauce, 155 grams. Old price was 99 cents, now it's 88 cents, 11 cents, 11% reduction. Now, these products, many importers bring it and many businesses sell it. So, you could go to Ocean King mackerel that has been bought by a canteen from a retail store that will have a different price. It won't be 88 cents because its cost structure is different. But if you come to, say, the supermarket, you will find it at 88 cents. But at the same supermarket, after 2 weeks, if you go, the price could be different because the new shipment could have come in with a new cost. It could be same, could be up, could be below. So we do product pricing on a daily basis for price control for basic food items. And that is why you'll notice that we do come out and tell people when prices generally increase or when there's a major reduction. But when there's reductions like 11%, there's reductions of 20% in 4 liters golden soybean oil from $21.57 to $17.16. That was done on the 9th. We don't come out and say, look, by the way, we've reduced prices. These are all on our master price list. We pass it, and we believe that as consumers, as responsible consumers, before they go out and do their Saturday shopping or Friday, whichever day they go out and do their shopping, they look at all specials in the super, and they have an extra resource. They can go to the FCCC website. If you go and print our master price list, you will be able, or you go and look at it, you'll be able to go and look at in rice, all the rice that is under price control, that is wholesaled and retailed. You can go and look at where the best prices are. Now there's an opportunity for innovators in Fiji. The master price list is so much data. I'm waiting for somebody with a tech mindset to come up and say, we'll take FCCC data and you can have an app where we'll give you what you select your shopping list. We'll do a algorithm check of the master price list because it's quite extensive, 30-40 pages long. You select tea leaves, will tell you which is the cheapest tea leaves. Now that will spur competition. So those are the spaces in which consumers, entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs, they can come up. There's a lot of scope, but the dynamics of pricing is very complex. It can also not be price related. And so when a consumer analyzes it, the consumer looks at the retail price. When we look at it, we have to look at everything from policy changes to geopolitics. So say if the Suez Canal had a problem tomorrow, or the Strait of Hormuz had a problem tomorrow, or say the Panama Canal had a problem tomorrow, which, I mean, if people are following international news, you know that there's issues with drought near the Panama Canal. What happens if the Panama Canal dries up tomorrow? I mean, you're not able to flush water in and out. That will increase prices of goods exponentially. And it's a non-pricing factor. It's a climate-based factor. What happens if there's a war all-out war, right, between the US and China? What impact will it have on the South China Sea? Will it be a naval war? If it will be, then what impact will it have on global shipping trade? Of course, the risk will go up, right? Because now you can drop nukes and bombs if you're having a global war. Nobody will want to take the risk, and those that will want to take the risk will give you the top end price. You pay the high end price. So the issues that we are observing globally is, the major issue is not of affordability, is of availability of products. Because while we are questioning and saying, look, the prices are not affordable, or things, cost of living is increasing, it's not a phenomenon in Fiji. You go cost of living and you type in Google, you'll find everywhere from Europe, most developed countries, they're having cost of living crisis, they're having energy crisis. In fact, in a lot of instances, month on month, when we compare Fiji to Australia and New Zealand prices, we're cheaper in fuel from Australia and New Zealand. We're cheaper for butter from New Zealand. We buy butter from New Zealand and we're still cheaper. It's because we have a robust price control system here. That being said, when you walk into a supermarket, you have the bigger supermarkets having 30 to 40,000 what they call SKUs, or different product lines. Of that, only 3 to 400 is controlled by the FCCC. So you walk into a supermarket and something is expensive, generally people will say, hey, what's the FCCC doing? We're doing our work where we are legally permitted to do so. Because even if we wanted, going out and controlling the entire Fijian market or the entire shop just wouldn't make any economic sense. What does make sense is for us to advocate and continuously empower consumers to say, please, if you're going to, say, a particular supermarket, right, and you find that the pricing practices of that supermarket or that shop is not good, exercise consumer solidarity. Call the National Consumer Helpline and say, this particular trader is jacked up the price, and we ask the Consumer Council on our behalf as the advocacy body to call for a boycott of this particular shop. Fiji's never had that. We've never exercised consumer solidarity. Guess what? Tomorrow, if people feel the price of something has increased, non-price control item, if you feel the price of toilet paper is now $8 and it's too much and we don't want to pay, we say, okay, nobody, as consumers, we are calling, nobody will go to this particular supermarket and buy any toilet paper from there. As sales start falling, guess what? The businesses will realize and start reducing their margins, their profitability, so they can enter the market. And so the reason I took so much time explaining it, because pricing as a concept is a complex exercise, and there's different variables that will affect pricing. We are happy to partner with FijiVillage, with any media agency, with any NGO, civil society, any community that wants us to come in and do this awareness and explain how these things work. We are happy to do so. We want our consumers to be aware of this, because we are there to serve their best interest. We want consumer welfare to increase. That is the goal, and we are doing so with the best of our abilities.